Hey guys, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I want to thank you for the continuous support, suggestions and phone calls. I think I'm in Kiddisville now. I think that's the name of the town where we have the research station for the Maryland up with Ms Susan. I think she kind of runs the operation down there. So that's a pretty cool drive. The GPS got us here in good time. And the scenery, wow, it's beautiful, guys. It's really, really beautiful. You should really wish I could, you know, if home was a little bit like this, we'll see how structured the agricultural sector can be, because it's really looking very organized. So guys, we're out here in Maryland Research Station and we're about to do a small tour of the facility. Unfortunately, there are not much animals here because I really wanted to see the sheep that they have. But I guess we get a small tour of the facility, look at some of the research that they are looking into. My interest is really looking at forages, nutrition, utilization, metabolism, and then to see, you know, what new technologies they're using regarding small ruminants and even larger ruminants, to see that what we can carry back home. Important for me is really capacity building and technology transfer, and that's the reason why I'm here, building my own capacity to can carry back this back home, and at the same time can transfer technology that's here into our sector back home to improve efficiency. So I hope this vlog really open you guys up, because I can tell you so far I'm very excited looking at the scenery. Looking at the environment, it just reminds me of a structured agricultural system that I would love to see. You know, we translate this type of system back home. So let's go, guys. So we got to meet with Ms Susan Schoenian, the sheep and goat specialist for the Maryland Research Center in the Western region.
This is most of the extension side. So there's like 8 or 9 specialists. So me and sheep and goats, farm management, wine and grapes, natural resources, forages, dairy and beef, energy,
And it's nice.
and market.
Okay.
Those are all the people. So my office. We have a couple of big meeting rooms upstairs and downstairs. We have field days and things like that. But right now we do everything online.
Online, yeah.
Yeah. So
The new world.
men's room. I've been here since beginning of '02, and I've been with Extension University since '88. Long time.
Long
So
time.
it'll be 33 years.
Wow. My mom retired 33 years as a teacher. Very recently.
My father retired when he was 55 years old. I always told myself I would do that, but I guess he'll be about 60.
We're pushing it. Yeah, my mom did that.
So I had a very close association with what we call UMES. And the guy that's now in charge of extension over there, Nelson Escobar,
Yes.
is originally from El Salvador.
Okay.
He is the small ruminant guy.
Use small ruminant. I'm working on a small ruminant project. We're trying to build our capacity. We have boar, Nubian, and we do a little sheep. So my real purpose of coming here is that because I always see you guys posting all this information online.
And my connection with Jamaica is pretty good. So I was last there. It's now been 4 or 5 years ago. I was asked to do some consulting.
Okay.
And this was a private individual that had started his own company. He is American, but Jamaican, you know, heritage.
Yes.
And he really wants to live in Jamaica. He just loves Jamaica.
That's great.
Who can you not love it? I love Jamaica.
It's lovely.
Anyhow, I believe he lives there now, and about a year ago, I should have looked into the paperwork I had. So Jamaica got some big project funded, and a portion of that was small ruminants. And so I was asked to be a consultant on that, and I ended up signing, I think it was conflict of interest stuff.
Yes.
And then COVID.
Oh no.
And so everything's on, I mean, I presume everything's on hold with COVID.
Yes.
This guy I was talking about at UMES, Nelson Escobar, he's actually sitting on funding. I don't know how much it is. I'm going to, for lack of a better quantity, I'm going to say $50,000, $60,000 to do a project in Jamaica. UMES has a good connection with Jamaica, a lot of students from Jamaica.
Yes.
So two of my best friends and colleagues are Jamaican. One of them is the small rodent specialist at Delaware State University, Kwame Matthews. The other one was, we all started in the UMES area. And then Delia O'Brien.
Yeah, I know Dr. Delia O'Brien.
So she started as a student at UMES, and I was down in that area. She took the position at Delaware State, then she moved to Virginia State. So then Kwame got her position.
Okay.
And so we worked together. And then there's another person that used to be at UMES, Nikki Whitley. She's at Fort Valley State University, which is in Georgia. So the four of us work a lot together, and we kind of mentor each other. Because I'm the oldest. We just get younger. Nikki's like 50, Dalia's like 40, Kwame's like 30. So and I'm 50. So you know, it's kind of like that. And we work mostly in parasites.
Yes, that's what
because that is
a big issue.
Huge. It's huge in Jamaica.
Yes,
Although it's interesting because my theory is the goats that go out to the bush at night during the day to graze, they shouldn't have significant parasite problems. But then when they're locked up at night, then my theory is that they probably have a lot of coccidia problems. Now, the animals that are on pastures, especially irrigated pastures, obviously they're going to have problems. But one of the things we were interested in doing is we wanted to test the drug resistance in Jamaica. Yeah. Anyhow, we never got that project off the ground. And now one of our colleagues, Ray Kaplan, who's like the worm god, you know, he's like the rock star of parasites. Anyhow, he's accepted, because he's a couple years older than me, but he's accepted a position in Grenada. And so we're hoping maybe with him there and the consortium, maybe to do some kind of project.
Yeah.
And so, and I personally would like to have some sort of project for Kwame and Delia, because that's where they're from.
Yes.
And to be able to give back to where they're from.
I really think I can probably match that up together. Working closely with the government and with the private sector, knowing Dr. O'Brien, I think with what we're doing now, we'll get something together.
And one of the interests, when I did the consult, I had been to Jamaica a couple of times around 2000-ish. I did like 10 trips to the Caribbean, of which Jamaica was several trips.
Okay.
Mostly we were promoting genetics. Okay. And then 4 or 5 years ago, his name is Kevin Crooks.
Oh, Dr. Kevin Crooks.
Kevin, you know Kevin?
Yeah, man. He was a consultant under the CFC project that did the.
Okay. Well, anyhow, Kevin's kind of my connection, and so I'm just trying. One of the reasons Kevin contacted me initially was because we did a buck test here for 11 years. So we would get bucks from all over the country. And we would do a performance test. We were primarily looking, this was pasture based.
Okay.
In most of the years, there was no supplement.
Wow.
In the last couple of years, we began supplementing, like soy hulls or something.
Soy hulls, okay.
And so so we measured growth, which was like not very good. We really looked at parasites.
Okay.
So we handled the goats every 2 weeks. And I want to stand in the shade.
Yeah, sure.
I've had skin cancer 5 times. So
Really?
goats that were resistant to parasites. And it was Kiko, the breed.
The Kiko breed was.
And Kevin got interested in bringing the Kiko to Jamaica. Because quite frankly, the boars are a terrible match for Jamaica. It's a terrible goat. Kiko.
The Kiko.
Because the Kiko has some toughness, has some parasite, handles parasites better.
It's recently we brought in Kiko semen into the country.
Good. Because I failed miserably, never getting Kikos from our buck test anywhere.
Yeah, we got some.
And so when I visited, when Kevin had me come down 4 or 5 years ago, we sat down with people and they told us we couldn't do it. And anyhow, well, because I think, because I wrote up a report for Kevin, and one of the things from a genetic standpoint, I believe, for Jamaica, and I'm not an expert, I come in and lead, right?
Yes.
But based on my limited experience,
Yes.
your native goats are a valuable resource.
All right, I love what I was going to say to you, that the kiko to me is very similar to our native animal. And I
I'm
think
not saying the boar doesn't have a role to play, because it does in crossbreeding programs, but it's not a savior.
it's not a savior, I get you.
And I can tell you repeatedly, when people put the boar in where they don't ratchet up the nutrition, it's going to be a failure. They showed it in this country compared to the Spanish goat. They're not better. You know, you're familiar with Spanish goat is our indigenous goat.
Yes.
So is the myotonic, which
Yeah.
is that Tennessee fainting goat.
Yes.
So those are quote the local native goats here.
Here, okay.
And the boar, you know, put him in a feedlot.
That's how it works.
In fact, one of the theories I have, and I'll never be able to do it because I'm just never going to be able to do it. So goat prices are incredible in the United States. They're just
High up there, I've seen it.
And so the challenge is not marketing in this country. People might say it is, and you know, infrastructure is not strong, and market prices are maybe haphazard. But generally speaking, goats sell for good money. The challenge is keeping the buggers alive, and they give birth to plenty of babies. So somewhere between, well, but they can have, you know, is keeping them. So production is the challenge.
Yes.
Keeping the boogers alive, and that's why sheep are so much easier.
Easier, no doubt.
But that's not what you want to eat in Jamaica.
No, we prefer our curry goat. That's
and I argued this with Kevin. He said, well, we can tell the difference between a male. I said, you can't
No,
tell.
that's a big debate.
I think.
Yeah, I think it's a mental thing. I agree.
Yeah, so I mean, it's challenging because this is a moist climate. And so we have hoof problems, we have respiratory problems, and we have parasite problems. And then we force goats to be grazers.
Yeah.
Which is what we did here. Which actually for here it was fine because we needed parasite exposure. When we first started the buck test, we didn't have enough worms. So I actually dosed them 1 year. But then we made plenty of
worms. Yeah.
So after 11 years, we had extremely high levels of parasites, and we had complete dewormer resistance. I could keep a goat alive, but it kind of compromises the data. If I can't, when a goat would come here, I need to deworm, I need to clear it out of parasites so that while it's here, I can evaluate that.
Yes.
If the goat comes in with a lot of parasites and this one doesn't, I can't compare. I got to get rid of the infection.
Yes, no doubt.
And so with the dewormer problems, I couldn't do that. Again, I can keep a goat alive. You know, plus we could add. You know, we use copper here, copper oxide water particles here too. But so when a goat first came in, we would give it a combination treatment. So we would give it valbazin, albendazole.
Albendazole.
We would give it moxidectin, sidectin.
Yeah.
And then we would give it levamisole, which is your
Levox.
So we would give it all this called prohibit. And in the early years, that knocked them out. But then they and it varied by farm. There could be this farm that knocked them out, but this farm didn't knock them out at all.
Okay.
And so that is what happened over the years, and we collected a mountain of data in those 11 years. Learned a lot. A lot of producers benefited, but it was time to pass the torch
to someone else.
West Virginia University does a buck test. They have them on feed, and they artificially challenge them. And if you don't do it that way, if you do it our way and put them on pasture, it's painful.
It's pain, I get you.
Because in order to get the resistant ones, you got a lot of them that can't handle it. We used to call them what did we have once? Survivors, thrivers, and divers. I wanted to get T-shirts that said, "I survived the Western Maryland pasture."
So a question: what would you say is probably the most sustainable strategy to mitigate against worms on pastures?
Well,
from your experience,
it's well, I tell you people what 11 years taught us: get them off pasture. That's in this climate.
And in this climate, get them off pastures.
And that's taking the extreme view. I realize that. So putting them in zero grazing situations.
It's better for them.
But realize what we have here is you want to walk?
Yes,
or
sure.
Can you film and walk? Yeah. Okay. Because it's a nice way to walk out to the place we have. So from a farm standpoint, if I have goats, I want browse.
You want
I want some browse.
Yes.
Because you know, when a goat's heads up, he's not getting parasites. Nature didn't intend, and if you look at the difference between sheep and goats, sheep are meant to consume the larva and develop immunity. We wish they did it quicker, but they will develop immunity to parasites. Goats' strategy was to not ingest them because they're grazing higher and they're browsing.
Yes, yes.
And so when we force a goat to graze, that's where we have more problems.
Problems.
So having maybe not the whole farm in browse, but you need some browse.
Need some browse. I get you.
You need some browse. And sometimes I wonder, and this is just a theory, you know how we talk about intensive grazing and where you make them eat everything and move them to the next paddock? Should we do that with goats? Isn't the whole beauty of the goat being able to select
what you want? Yes.
Doesn't that go against what a goat is?
Yes, no doubt.
So I'm not saying people agree with me, but I often thought about that. Goats like a salad bar. They like to choose.
Choose what they want, no doubt,
Right.
no doubt.
So I think that's key, is having some browse. And so if you've got land like what we have here, maybe goats aren't the best choice. Or maybe the kid goats, you either market them off of mom, young,
Or like wieners, or sell like a wiener production system.
or you put them in dry lot.
Okay.
Dry lot meaning zero grazing.
Zero grazing, yeah.
Other strategies, if you think about it, so if I do rotational grazing and I move them every 3 to 4 days, in our climate, and I doubt Jamaica's that much different, if the conditions are perfect, right, you've got warmth and moisture, the soonest so she poops, and you have the worm egg in there, the soonest that egg can hatch, go through a couple of molts and become a L3, which is the third stage larva, is 3 or 4 days. That's the soonest. Perfect conditions. Perfect. It's not always perfect for the worm, but that would be the soonest. So theoretically, if you move them every 3 or 4 days, they're not going to get reinfected.
Okay.
Right? And then if you don't come back to that paddock for, 60 days.
60 days.
That's going to be somewhat dependent on your climate. Then theoretically that should prevent.
Prevent them picking back up those, I get you.
Theoretically.
Theoretically. Oh. Well, that's rough.
Those don't like theories.
Well, why I think probably our boar population is surviving in Jamaica is because we farmers don't have land. So they naturally have to kind of put them in a semi-intensive system.
Right.
So we do a lot of cut and carry for these animals.
And I think the benefits of a cut and carry for goats, you solve parasites and you also prevent grazing.
Yes,
Which is becoming increasingly problematic in different parts of the world, including Jamaica.
For sure.
Because I'm trying to remember, how land, do they all own their land?
Well, no.
So this guy might graze and then this one does too. They both put and then you get overgrazing.
Get overgrazing.
You don't want that, especially you don't want it on all land, but you don't want it on public land. The other thing strategies that we did here, so we would plant, so we would keep, our system's 10 acres, and then there's a section, and you'll see this, that's got like 2 or 3 acres that has trees in it. So basically the 10 acres was what we focused on. So half of it were in cool season perennials, like fescue and orchard grass.
Yes.
That's best for making parasites. And then the other half we'd always put in a summer annual, a warm season annual. Not chicory, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. Sun hemp, forage sorghum, pearl millet, dwarf pearl millet. We have stories to tell about millet. So theoretically, they're grazing a clean pasture, right? And they're taller. So theoretically, those things should help.
Should help, yes.
Lots of things that we say, there's just different things we have that hopefully we do different things and all together they control. One of the farmer's best weapons is to select for it. So I tell people, one of the drastic things I always tell people, if your buck needs deworm, and if he needs dewormed, I said just field dressing. Just kill him and eat him right then and there. He doesn't deserve to live. Because if your buck needs dewormed and he's mating with all those different does and passing those genetics on.
Yeah, that's bad for you.
So finding a way, like I would love to see Jamaica do a buck test.
Yes.
I mean, better than a buck test would be the EBVs, but we can't get them to do it here. I don't think, you know, but a buck test, where you would see. And not so much about growth as, again, about parasites.
About parasite resistance.
So the best bucks that we would select out of the test, we would try to sell about 10 or 12 of them a year at the end of the test. And it would be, they had to meet, we sort of set it up like the Olympics, gold, silver, and bronze standards. So they had 3 levels of standards for growth, parasite resistance, so fecal egg counts. So where that was concerned, they had to, their average fecal egg count had to be a certain level, and their highest egg count had to be a certain level. And then resilience, which was FOMACHA scores, which, because we're like 90% barber pole worm, that translated to whether or not they needed treated.
Treated, yes, yes.
And so it's, in order to be like a gold or silver, they couldn't have been dewormed. They could have been dewormed as in a bronze level if they were a FOMACHA 3, but if they were a 4 and 5,
no, I get you.
And then they had to be, and then we would set the growth as well. In order to be one of those, they had to be above average, but then we separated them out. That was how we did it. Because from an extension standpoint, producers like winners, and they're competitive. And so that worked out. They wanted to be able to advertise that their buck was this. They always wanted me to say who was first, and I used to decline. They wanted a winner, and I wouldn't give it.
Give them a winner. That's so true.
But I shouldn't say that, because we would give out awards. Like we did give out awards, so we'd have the best buck and the top growth. I tried to separate the traits out. Who's your best growing buck? Who's your most resistant? Your most resilient? Your biggest ribeye? We would scan them.
Oh, nice.
And then who's the best consigner? So who put the 3 best bucks in the test? So we tried to, because again, from an extension standpoint, there's certain things that work well, because you can build an entire extension program around the buck test.
Around the buck test, I get you.
Yeah, because everything was shared on a blog, and you know, I did a good job of getting the information out there. I mean, the West Virginia test might be is a good test, but they're not as good as I was about getting it out there.
Getting out there, okay.
And they don't have a sale. They don't have a sale. And I don't know. I don't personally. The artificial challenge to me is still not the same, because some animals get more infected because they eat in the same damn place.
Yeah.
There's some behavioral parts to it.
Yes, yes.
And you know, people try to tell me you do a buck test on feed, that's the same on pasture. I said, it is not. It is a completely different dynamic being out on pasture. It's hot, it's cold, it's wet.
Yeah.
I'm with 80 other goats, not 4. It's a completely different dynamic. Because I sometimes think that the goat that you want on pasture is not necessarily the one that would convert feed most efficiently, but the one that's the biggest pig that never stops eating. We used to always joke about this buck we had. I think it was the first year of the test. He would eat while he was being humped. He'd just keep eating even though he was being humped.
That's him.
Yeah, he would just... Yeah, I mean, but there's a lot of behavioral issues with goats that I think are... I don't know. Anyhow. Like I said, we did it for 11 years, and we had a... and then one of the things we started doing with them is we started killing some of them. We started... we wanted to look at the carcasses on pasture-fed goats.
Okay, how was that?
Well, the conclusion was they weren't market ready.
Oh, they weren't market ready, okay.
And you know, and you know, I have to say, you know, what is market ready? You know, I can apply my sheep lens to it. It's a certain amount of back fat.
Back fat.
But when I talk about goats, it's different. And when I say not market ready, I'm going to say it's not back fat, because you know we don't fatten goats. We fatten them inside. And it's whether they develop sufficiently. So we concluded that they weren't market ready. So then we were going to do a study. We were going to put them in a pen and feed them mostly forage with grain once a day and look at the differences. So we did that for 4 years. First 2 years we would have a consigner give me 2 bucks. I'd put one in the pen and one on pasture. That didn't work. Better was to get bucks from the same consigner. So the 3rd year I got, believe it or not, I had to go to Kansas All I want was 30 goats of the same age. So, I mean, similar age. And then the fourth year they came from New Jersey. And there's a little differences from year to year, but what it would show was that if you looked at so we killed them all, obviously. Big difference in ribeye. You know, more like this fed and like this not fed.
Not fed.
Nobody was fat. In fat in terms of back fat. In fact, it's ironic. The fattest goat we ever had was a pasture goat. And when I say fattest, it was still, we were looking at internal fat.
Fat, yes, yes.
So we measured that. So when we killed them, we completely deboned that goat out. I didn't just say, oh, this is what the leg weighed, or we had a pile of meat, pile of bones, pile of fat. We measured kidney and heart fat. We did not estimate it.
Wow.
We measured ribeyes. You couldn't measure back fat. There's no back fat.
There's no back fat, yeah.
And so basically, again, there were some differences from year to year, but it would have been a more profitable system to have in a pen.
Having a pen.
Because no parasites.
Yes.
And they grew better, so you had more weight. In the U.S. system, we have a grades, a selection 1, 2, and 3, which is basically a heavy muscle, average muscle, light muscle.
Light muscle.
So they graded higher, would have brought more money. So that was kind of how that panned out.